The research ship landed on Titan 7 with a soft thud that echoed across the empty plains. Captain Jake Morrison stepped out first, his boots crunching on the strange purple grass that covered most of the planet. The air was thick and humid, filled with the smell of something wild and dangerous. "Well, this place looks cheerful," said Sergeant Tom Bradley as he followed Jake down the ramp. Tom carried a heavy rifle and wore full combat armor. His eyes moved constantly, watching for threats in every shadow. Dr. Emily Carter came next, her arms full of scientific equipment. She was excited to be here, even though everyone said this planet was a death trap. Emily had spent years studying the reports about Titan 7. The stories all said the same thing. Nothing lived here for long except the shadow prowlers. "The readings are incredible," Emily said, setting up her scanner. "The biodiversity here is off the charts. There are species here that exist nowhere else in the galaxy." Lisa Reynolds, their engineer, was already working on setting up their base camp. She had designed most of their equipment herself. Lisa believed in being prepared for anything, especially on a planet where 3 different alien colonies had failed completely. "The Vaxan Empire tried to take this place 5 years ago," Lisa said while connecting power cables. "They sent a full military division. 200 of their best soldiers, only 12 made it back to their ships." Jake nodded. He had read all the reports during their journey here. The Vaxan were not weak. They had conquered dozens of worlds across the galaxy. Their soldiers were trained from birth to be perfect warriors. If they could not handle the creatures on Titan 7, this mission would be very dangerous. "What about the Helix Confederation?" Tom asked. "They tried to colonize here too, right?" 3 years ago, Emily replied, checking her equipment. "They brought advanced technology and energy shields. The shadow prowlers went right through their defenses like they were made of paper. The stories about shadow prowlers were legendary across the galaxy. They were massive creatures, 15 feet, long from nose to tail. Their bodies were covered in black scales that could stop most weapons. They had glowing amber eyes that could see in complete darkness. Most terrifying of all, they hunted in organized packs like military units. The third attempt was by the Corlin Trading Company," Jake said. "They tried to set up a mining operation on the southern continent. The prowlers destroyed every piece of equipment and chased them off the planet in less than a week." Emily had studied every video recording from the failed colonies. The shadow prowlers moved like living shadows across the landscape. They were fast, smart, and completely fearless. Most creatures in the galaxy would run from advanced technology and superior firepower. The prowlers seemed to see it as a challenge. "So why are we here?" Tom asked. "What makes humans think we can succeed where everyone else failed?" "Because we are not here to conquer or mine or build cities," Jake replied. "We are here to study and understand. Maybe that will make all the difference." Their research station was small but well defended. Lisa had designed it to be as non-threatening as possible while still protecting them from attack. The walls were made of transparent materials, so the prowlers could see inside. The weapon systems were hidden and only activated if absolutely necessary. "The first rule of studying dangerous animals," Emily said, "is to show them you are not a threat. Every previous expedition came here with big ships and heavy weapons. They acted like conquerors from the moment they arrived." Jake hoped Emily was right. The mission was important to Earth and to humanity's standing in the galactic community. If they could succeed here, it would prove that humans had something special to offer. If they failed, they might become just another footnote in Titan 7's deadly history. On their second day, they saw their first shadow prowler. Emily was collecting plant samples near a stream when Tom's voice crackled over the radio. "Emily, freeze right where you are. Do not move a muscle." Emily looked up slowly and saw it. The creature stood on a ridge about 50 yards away. It was even larger than the reports suggested. Its black scales seemed to absorb the sunlight, making it look like a hole in the world. The amber eyes stared directly at her with an intelligence that sent chills down her spine. "It is beautiful," Emily whispered. "It is deadly," Tom replied. "I have a clear shot if it moves toward you." "Do not shoot unless I say so," Jake ordered over the radio. "Emily, can you get back to the station?" Emily began moving very slowly. The shadow prowler watched every step, but did not follow. When she was halfway back to safety, the creature made a sound. It was not a roar or a growl. It sounded almost like speech. "Did you hear that?" Emily asked. "Hear what?" Tom replied. Emily stopped and looked back. The shadow prowler was still watching her. It made the same sound again. Then it turned and disappeared into the forest like smoke. "It was trying to communicate," Emily said when she reached the station. "It was sizing you up for dinner," Tom replied. But Jake was thinking. In all the reports from previous expeditions, nobody had mentioned the creatures trying to communicate. They had only described attacks and destruction. Maybe the shadow prowlers were more than just mindless killers. That night, Emily studied all the audio recordings from their encounter. She played the sounds over and over, looking for patterns. The creature had made 3 distinct vocalizations. Each one was different, like words in a sentence. "What if they have language?" Emily said to Jake. "What if they are intelligent?" "Intelligent creatures that attack without warning," Jake replied. "Maybe they attack because nobody ever tried to talk to them," Emily said. "Every expedition came, here ready for war. What if the prowlers were just defending their home?" Jake looked out at the dark forest surrounding their station. Somewhere in those shadows, the most dangerous predators in the galaxy were watching them. Tomorrow would tell them whether Emily's theory was brilliant or deadly wrong. The storm hit Titan 7 on their 5th day. Emily had never seen anything like it. The purple sky turned black as massive clouds rolled across the horizon. Lightning cracked through the air in colors that did not exist on Earth. The wind howled, like a living thing trying to tear their research station apart. "The power generators are failing," Lisa shouted over the noise. She was working frantically at her control panel, trying to keep their systems online. "The storm is interfering with everything." Jake watched the readings on his screen with growing worry. The life support systems were struggling. Their air recyclers were working at half power. The heating units had shut down completely when lightning struck their main power line. "How long can we last?" Jake asked. "Maybe 2 days if we are lucky," Lisa replied. The backup generators were not designed for this kind of storm. Tom was checking their emergency supplies. His face was grim when he looked up from the storage lockers. "We have enough food for a week, but that does not matter if we freeze to death first." The storm raged for 18 hours before it finally passed. When morning came, Jake surveyed the damage to their station. The main power line was destroyed. 3 of their communication arrays were broken. Worst of all, their emergency beacon was not working. They could not call for help. "The rescue ship is not due back for 6 days, Jake said. "We need to fix the beacon or find another way to signal them." Emily studied the maps on her computer screen. There was an old emergency beacon left by the Helix Confederation about 10 miles east of their position. It might still work if they could reach it and power it up. 10 miles through Shadow Prowler territory, Tom said when Jake explained the plan. "That is suicide." "Staying here is also suicide," Jake replied. "We will freeze to death waiting for rescue." Tom checked his weapons and ammunition. He had enough firepower to handle maybe 3 or 4 prowlers, but the creatures always traveled in large packs. If they encountered a full hunting group, fighting would be hopeless. "What if we do not fight them?" Emily said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. Emily had been thinking about the encounter by the stream, the way the shadow prowler had watched her, the sounds it had made. Something about the whole experience felt different from the attack reports. "I have been studying their vocalizations," Emily continued. "The creature that watched me made 3 distinct sounds. Each one had a different tone and length. I think they were trying to tell me something. Like what? Tom asked. Maybe that I was in their territory. Maybe a warning to leave. Or maybe just curiosity about what I was doing. Jake was desperate enough to consider any option. What are you suggesting? Let me try to communicate with them, Emily said. Every previous expedition came here with weapons ready and ships that looked threatening. What if we try a different approach? Tom shook his head. That is the craziest idea I have ever heard. Crazier than walking 10 miles through their hunting grounds while shooting at everything that moves, Emily replied. Lisa looked up from her equipment. The beacon components I need are not that heavy. One person could carry them easily. If Emily can somehow get us safe passage, it might work. Jake weighed their options. Both plans were dangerous, but Emily's approach was at least something new. Every military solution had failed on Titan 7. Maybe it was time to try something different. What would you need to do? Jake asked Emily. I studied animal behavior before I specialized in xenobiology, Emily said. Most intelligent species have ways to show they are not threats. Body language, vocalizations, specific behaviors that signal peaceful intent. Emily had spent hours watching the recordings from their encounter. She noticed that the shadow prowler had not shown any aggressive postures. Its body language had seemed more curious than hostile. I think they have a complex social structure, Emily continued. The way they hunt in coordinated groups suggests high intelligence. If they are smart enough for military tactics, they might be smart enough for communication. Tom was still skeptical. And if you are wrong, you get torn apart by the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. If I am wrong, we all die anyway when our life support fails, Emily replied. Jake made his decision. We try Emily's plan first. If it does not work, we go to the backup plan of fighting our way to the beacon. Emily spent the next 2 hours preparing. She studied every piece of video they had of shadow prowler behavior. She practiced the vocalizations she had recorded, trying to match the tone and rhythm exactly. Most importantly, she learned how to show submissive body language that might signal peaceful intentions. Remember, Emily said as she prepared to leave the station, if this goes wrong, do not try to rescue me. Get to the beacon and call for help. Jake watched Emily walk toward the forest edge where they had first seen the shadow prowler. She moved slowly and kept her hands visible. Every few steps, she made the calling sounds she had practiced. For the first hour, nothing happened. Emily continued her slow approach to the forest, calling out in what she hoped was the shadow prowler language. Tom kept his rifle ready but followed Jake's orders not to shoot unless Emily was actually attacked. Then they appeared. Not just one shadow prowler, but 5 of them. They emerged from the trees like living shadows, surrounding Emily before anyone could react. The largest one, with scars across its face and shoulders, stepped forward. Emily forced herself to remain calm. She lowered herself to the ground in a submissive posture and made the softest vocalization from her recordings. The scarred prowler tilted its massive head and made a sound in return. She is talking to them, Lisa whispered in amazement. The conversation continued for several minutes. Emily would make a sound, and one or more of the prowlers would respond. Their vocalizations became more complex, almost like they were asking questions. Finally, Emily stood up slowly and pointed back toward the damaged research station. She made what sounded like distress calls, similar to sounds young animals make when they need help. The scarred prowler looked toward their station, then back at Emily. It made a series of quick sounds to the other prowlers. Then, incredibly, the entire pack began walking toward the human base. "They are coming this way," Tom said, raising his weapon. "Do not shoot," Jake ordered. "Emily is still with them. If they wanted to attack, she would already be dead." The shadow prowlers approached the research station with Emily walking among them like she belonged in their pack. When they reached the damaged equipment, the scarred prowler examined everything carefully. It seemed to understand that the humans were in trouble and needed help. What happened next amazed everyone. The shadow prowlers began helping repair the damage from the storm. Jake could not believe what he was seeing. The shadow prowlers were helping them repair their research station. The creatures that had destroyed entire military expeditions were now carefully moving heavy debris away from their damaged equipment. The scarred leader, whom Emily had started calling Rex, lifted a massive piece of metal that would have taken all 4 humans working together to move. Rex set it down gently, being careful not to damage any of the delicate instruments nearby. "This is impossible," Tom whispered. He still held his rifle, but he had not raised it once since the prowlers arrived. "These things are supposed to be mindless killers." "They are not mindless at all," Emily replied. She was working alongside Rex, pointing to different pieces of equipment and explaining what each one did. Rex seemed to understand her gestures and helped position everything exactly where she indicated. Lisa was amazed by how carefully the prowlers handled their technology. "They understand that this equipment is fragile," she said. "Look how gentle they are being with the communication array." 2 smaller prowlers were working together to straighten a bent antenna. They moved it slowly and carefully, checking with Emily before making each adjustment. When they finished, the antenna was perfectly aligned. "Their intelligence level is incredible," Emily said. "They can see the purpose of complex equipment just by watching us use it. That suggests problem-solving abilities equal to most sentient species." Jake was starting to understand why every previous expedition had failed so badly. The other alien species had come to Titan 7 expecting to fight animals. Instead, they had encountered intelligent beings who were protecting their home from what they saw as invaders. "We have been looking at this all wrong," Jake said. "The prowlers were not attacking randomly. They were defending their territory from hostile colonizers." The repair work took most of the day. The shadow prowlers worked tirelessly, following Emily's instructions and using their incredible strength to fix damage that would have taken the humans weeks to repair on their own. As the sun began to set, Rex made a series of complex vocalizations to Emily. She listened carefully, trying to understand what he was trying to communicate. "I think he wants to show us something," Emily said to Jake. "He keeps making sounds that seem like an invitation." Tom was immediately suspicious. "Show us what? This could be a trap." "If they wanted to hurt us, they could have done it hours ago," Emily replied. "Rex and his pack have been helping us all day. I think we can trust them." Jake made the decision to follow Rex. The whole team went together, with Tom bringing his weapons just in case. They walked for about a mile through the forest, following paths that seemed to be made specifically for the shadow prowlers. Rex led them to what looked like a natural formation of rocks. But as they got closer, Emily realized it was much more than that. The rocks had been carefully arranged to create a hidden entrance to an underground cave system. "They built this," Lisa said in amazement. "This is not natural. They actually constructed this entrance." Rex made encouraging sounds and gestured for them to follow him into the caves. The interior was lit by some kind of bioluminescent moss that grew on the walls. The caves were clearly not random formations. They had been designed and shaped by intelligent hands. "This is a city," Emily breathed. "They have an entire civilization down here." The cave system was enormous. Tunnels branched off in every direction, leading to different chambers and levels. Emily could see other shadow prowlers moving through the passages. Some were carrying things that looked like tools. Others seemed to be tending to glowing plants that provided light and possibly food. Rex led them deeper into the complex until they reached a large central chamber. What Emily saw there changed everything she thought she knew about the shadow prowlers. The chamber was full of young ones, shadow prowler cubs that were much smaller than the adults, with softer scales and brighter amber eyes. They were playing together, tumbling around like puppies, while adult prowlers watched over them protectively. "They have families," Tom said softly. "They are not just pack hunters. They have children." But something was wrong. Emily could see it immediately. Many of the cubs looked sick. Their eyes were dull, and they moved slowly. Some were lying still while worried adults hovered over them. Rex made a series of urgent sounds and led Emily to one of the sick cubs. The little creature was barely moving, its breathing shallow and labored. Rex looked at Emily with what she could only describe as desperate hope. "He wants me to help," Emily realized. "He brought us here because the cubs are sick, and he thinks we might be able to heal them." Emily knelt down beside the sick cub and carefully examined it. She could see swollen areas under its scales and a strange discoloration around its eyes. It looked like some kind of infection or disease. "I am not a veterinarian," Emily said to Jake. "I study animal behavior, not alien medical conditions." But Rex was making more sounds, and other adult prowlers were bringing more sick cubs forward. Emily counted at least 20 young ones that showed signs of the same illness. "They are dying," Emily said quietly. "Their children are dying, and they do not know how to save them." Jake understood the situation immediately. The shadow prowlers had spent years, maybe generations, fighting off alien colonizers who they saw as threats to their families. Now they were facing a different kind of threat, one that all their strength and intelligence could not defeat. "That is why they have been so aggressive toward other species," Jake said. "They were not just protecting territory. They were protecting sick children." Lisa was already thinking like an engineer. "We have medical scanners and basic treatment supplies. Maybe we can figure out what is making them sick." Emily looked around at all the sick cubs and their worried parents. These creatures had trusted humans with their most precious possessions, their young. No other species had ever been shown this level of trust by the shadow prowlers. "We have to try," Emily said. "They helped save our lives today. Now they are asking us to help save theirs." Rex seemed to understand her words. He made a sound that Emily was beginning to recognize as agreement or gratitude. Then he gently picked up the sickest cub and placed it carefully in front of Emily. The message was clear. The most feared predators in the galaxy were entrusting their children to human care. It was a level of trust that went beyond anything Emily had ever experienced with an alien species. Jake looked around at all the sick cubs and their desperate parents. "We came here to study the shadow prowlers," he said. "I think we just found out what they really need from us." Emily worked through the night trying to understand what was making the shadow prowler cubs sick. She had set up her medical scanner in the cave chamber, with Rex and several other adult prowlers watching her every move. The scanner showed something that made Emily's heart sink. The cubs were infected with tiny parasites that were eating them from the inside. The creatures were too small to see without a microscope, but they were slowly killing every young prowler on the planet. "This is bad," Emily told Jake over her communication device. "These parasites are in their blood, their organs, everywhere. Without treatment, all of these cubs will die within a few weeks." Lisa had brought down some of their portable equipment to help with the analysis. She was working on adapting their human medical tools to work on shadow prowler physiology. "The good news is that I recognize this type of parasite," Emily continued. "We have similar ones on Earth. Human antibiotics might be able to kill them." "Might be able to," Tom repeated. "What if the medicine kills the cubs instead?" Emily looked at the sickest cub lying in front of her. The little creature was barely breathing. Its parents stood nearby, making soft, worried sounds. Without treatment, this cub would definitely die. With treatment, there was at least a chance. "Rex," Emily said, looking at the scarred leader. She pointed to the sick cub, then to her medical supplies. She made questioning sounds, trying to ask permission to try the treatment. Rex understood immediately. He made a series of sounds that seemed to be directed at the cub's parents. They responded with what sounded like agreement. Then Rex looked back at Emily and made a sound that clearly meant yes. Emily prepared the antibiotic injection carefully. She had calculated the dosage based on the cub's size and weight, but she was still guessing about how shadow prowler bodies would react to human medicine. The injection went smoothly. The cub barely moved when Emily gave it the shot. Now came the hardest part, waiting to see if the treatment would work or make things worse. "How long before we know?" Jake asked. "With humans, we would see improvement in 12 to 24 hours, Emily replied. "With shadow prowlers, I have no idea." Word about the human treatment spread through the prowler community faster than Emily had thought possible. By morning, more adult prowlers had arrived at the caves. Each one brought sick cubs that needed help. "There must be 50 cubs here now," Tom said, looking around the expanded medical area that Lisa had set up. "How many more are out there?" Rex made complex vocalizations that Emily was starting to understand better. She had been learning their language quickly, helped by the fact that the prowlers seemed eager to teach her. "I think he is saying that cubs are sick all across the planet," Emily translated. "This parasite infection is everywhere." The first sign that the treatment was working came 18 hours after Emily had given the initial injection. The sickest cub lifted its head and made a soft sound. Its eyes were brighter, and its breathing was stronger. Emily checked the cub with her scanner and almost cried with relief. The parasites in its blood were dying. The antibiotic was working exactly as she had hoped. Rex saw the scanner results and understood immediately what they meant. He made a sound that was pure joy and relief. Other adult prowlers heard him and came running to see what had happened. When they saw the recovering cub trying to stand up and play, the cave filled with prowler vocalizations that sounded like celebration. Emily realized she was witnessing something that had not happened on this planet in a very long time. A sick shadow prowler cub getting better. "We need more antibiotics," Emily told Jake. "A lot more. If this infection is planet-wide, we are going to need enough medicine to treat thousands of cubs." Lisa was already working on the problem. "I can modify our medical fabricator to produce the antibiotics we need. It will take time, but we can make enough for all the cubs they bring us." Over the next few days, the cave system became a medical center unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Shadow prowlers from across the planet arrived with their sick young. They formed orderly lines, waiting patiently for Emily to examine and treat each cub. Tom was amazed by their behavior. "These are the same creatures that destroyed entire military units. Now they are waiting in line like patients at a hospital." Emily was learning more about prowler society every day. They had a complex social structure with different groups responsible for different tasks. Some were hunters, others were builders, and some seemed to be teachers for the young ones. They have been dealing with this parasite problem for generations, Emily realized. That is why their population has been declining. They have been slowly losing their children to this disease. The adult prowlers watched Emily work with deep attention. Some of them started helping by holding cubs still during injections or bringing water and food for the recovering young ones. They were learning human medical techniques and adapting them to their own needs. Jake understood that they were witnessing something historic. Every other species that came to this planet saw monsters to be defeated or resources to be exploited. We saw patients to be healed. As more cubs recovered, the atmosphere in the caves changed completely. Young prowlers that had been too sick to play were now running around the chambers, wrestling with each other and making happy sounds. Their parents watched with obvious relief and gratitude. Rex approached Emily one evening as she was finishing her work for the day. He made a series of careful sounds that Emily had learned meant deep gratitude. Then he did something that surprised everyone. Rex gently touched Emily's hand with his massive clawed paw. It was a gesture of trust and friendship that went beyond anything she had experienced with an alien species. "I think we just became the first humans to be accepted as friends by the shadow prowlers," Emily said to Jake. But their success was about to face its biggest challenge yet. High above the planet, Sensors detected ships entering the Titan 7 system. The Vaxxon Empire had returned, and they were not coming in peace. The Vaxxon war fleet dropped out of hyperspace above Titan 7 like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. Jake watched the ships on his scanner and counted 12 heavy cruisers, 30 fighter craft, and one massive command vessel that could level entire cities. Admiral Krosk is demanding we surrender the planet immediately, Lisa reported from their communication station. He says humans have no right to interfere with Vaxxon territorial claims. Jake activated the communication system. Admiral Krosk's scarred face appeared on the screen, his yellow eyes burning with anger. "Human Captain Morrison," Krosk snarled. "You will evacuate this planet within 1 hour. The Vaxxon Empire claims Titan 7 by right of conquest." "The Shadow Prowlers might have something to say about that," Jake replied calmly. Krosk laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the communication channel. "Those beasts killed 200 of my finest warriors 5 years ago. Now I have returned with enough firepower to destroy every living thing on this planet." "They are not beasts," Emily said, stepping into view of the communication screen. "They are intelligent beings with families and children. We have been helping heal their sick cubs." "Impossible," Krosk replied. "The creatures of Titan 7 are mindless killers. Our military analysis confirmed this years ago." Jake decided to show Krosk the truth. He activated the video feed from inside the cave system, where Shadow Prowler cubs were playing together under the watchful eyes of their parents. Krosk stared at the images in disbelief. "This is some kind of human trick. The Shadow Prowlers do not have young. They are killing machines that reproduce through cloning or some other unnatural method." "Come down and see for yourself," Jake challenged, "but leave your weapons in orbit. These beings will defend their children against any threat." Krosk cut the communication without another word. Within an hour, Vaxxon landing craft were descending toward the planet's surface. Each ship was heavily armed and carried dozens of elite soldiers in combat armor. Rex had been listening to the conversation through Emily's translation. He understood that new invaders were coming to threaten his people's home. The scarred Prowler leader made a series of urgent calls that echoed through the cave system. The response was immediate. Shadow Prowlers emerged from every tunnel and chamber, moving with military precision. Emily watched in amazement as hundreds of the massive creatures organized themselves into defensive formations. "They are preparing for war," Tom observed. "Look how they are positioning themselves." Emily could see the tactical intelligence that Rex was displaying. Some Prowlers were taking high ground positions where they could watch for incoming threats. Others were forming protective circles around the areas where the cubs were being treated. They are not just defending randomly, Emily realized. Rex is coordinating a planet-wide defense strategy. Jake received another communication from Admiral Krosk. The Vaxxon commander was now on the planet's surface with a full battalion of soldiers. "We have established a perimeter around your research station," Krosk announced. "Surrender now, and we will allow you to leave alive." "I do not think the Shadow Prowlers are going to let that happen," Jake replied. As if summoned by his words, Rex appeared at the edge of the forest surrounding the research station. He was not alone. Behind him stood dozens of adult Shadow Prowlers, their amber eyes glowing in the dim light. Krosk saw them through his battle armor sensors and immediately ordered his soldiers to prepare for combat. "All units, weapons free. Eliminate any creature that approaches our position." But the Shadow Prowlers did not attack. Instead, they spread out in a perfect defensive line between the Vaxxon forces and the human research station. The message was clear. To reach the humans, the Vaxxons would have to go through every Shadow Prowler on the planet. "Impossible," Krosk muttered. "They are protecting the humans." Emily stepped out of the research station and walked toward the line of Shadow Prowlers. Tom tried to stop her, but Jake held him back. "She knows what she is doing," Jake said. Emily approached Rex and made the sounds she had learned for requesting permission to speak. Rex responded with agreement, and Emily began to translate between the two groups. Rex wants to know why you have come back to harm his people, Emily said to Krosk. He remembers the last time Vaxan soldiers were here. Many prowlers died defending their cubs. We came to claim this planet, Krosk replied. These creatures have no legal right to prevent galactic development, Emily translated, and Rex made a sound that was unmistakably laughter. Then he made a longer series of vocalizations that Emily had to think carefully about before translating. Rex says that his people have lived here for thousands of years. He wants to know what legal right you have to take away their children's home. Krosk was getting frustrated. They are animals. Animals do not have property rights under galactic law, Emily translated again, and this time Rex's response was different. He made a complex series of sounds while gesturing to the cubs that were playing near the cave entrance. Rex is challenging your claim that they are animals, Emily said. He asks, do animals build cities, develop language, create art, and care for their sick? He says if you still think they are animals after seeing all this, then you are too stupid to deserve this planet. Several of Krosk's soldiers actually chuckled at the translation, which made the Admiral even angrier. Enough of this, Krosk snarled. All units advance and secure the research station. The Vaxan soldiers began moving forward, their weapons ready. But before they could take more than a few steps, something amazing happened. Shadow prowlers began emerging from the forest in every direction, not dozens, but hundreds of them. They had been waiting in perfect concealment, and now they revealed themselves all at once. Krosk's soldiers found themselves surrounded by more shadow prowlers than anyone had ever seen in one place. The creatures stood silent and still, but their presence was overwhelming. How many are there? One of Krosk's officers whispered. Emily looked around at the assembled shadow prowlers and realized that Rex had called in every adult on the planet. This was not just a pack defending territory. This was an entire species standing together to protect their families. Admiral Krosk, Jake said over the communication system, I think you need to reconsider your position. Admiral Krosk looked at the hundreds of shadow prowlers surrounding his forces and made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his career. Instead of trying to negotiate or retreat, he ordered his soldiers to attack. Open fire on all. Creatures, Krosk commanded. We will show these beasts the power of Vaxan military might. The battle that followed was unlike anything Emily had ever witnessed. The shadow prowlers moved like liquid darkness, flowing around the Vaxan positions faster than the soldiers could track. Their coordination was perfect, as if they shared a single mind. But what amazed Emily most was that the prowlers were not just fighting for themselves. When Vaxan soldiers tried to advance toward the research station, Rex's pack positioned themselves directly in the line of fire to protect the humans. They are protecting us, Tom said in disbelief as he watched massive shadow prowlers using their armored bodies to shield the human position from enemy weapons. Emily realized that Rex was trying to coordinate their defense with human tactics. She grabbed her communication device and began relaying information about Vaxan positions to Rex using the language she had learned. Rex, 10 soldiers moving toward the east cave entrance, Emily called out in shadow prowler vocalizations. Rex responded immediately, directing a group of prowlers to intercept the threat. Emily watched as human intelligence and shadow prowler strength combined into something greater than either could achieve alone. Lisa was monitoring the battle from inside the research station when her scanners detected something terrible. A Vaxan missile had hit near the main cave entrance and several shadow prowler cubs were trapped in the collapsed tunnel. Emily, the cubs are in trouble, Lisa shouted. The medical area took a direct hit. Emily did not hesitate. She ran toward the damaged cave entrance, with Tom close behind her carrying emergency medical supplies. Rex saw where they were going and roared commands to his pack. Immediately, dozens of shadow prowlers shifted their defensive positions to protect Emily as she worked to reach the injured cubs. Inside the collapsed tunnel, Emily found 3 cubs trapped under fallen rocks. One was unconscious, another was crying in pain, and the third was trying to protect the other two despite being badly hurt itself. "Help me move these rocks," Emily called to Tom. Together they began clearing the debris while Vaxxon weapons fire echoed outside the cave. Rex appeared beside them, using his massive strength to lift rocks that the humans could never move. As they worked together to free the cubs, Emily realized that something important was happening. In the middle of a battle, human and shadow prowler were working side by side to save innocent lives. The first cub they freed was the most badly injured. Emily quickly examined the little creature and found several broken bones and internal bleeding. She began emergency treatment while Rex held the cub gently in his huge paws. "The medical fabricator is still working," Lisa reported over the communication system. "I can produce emergency medicine if you tell me what you need." Emily worked frantically to stabilize the injured cub while battle sounds continued outside. The second cub was less seriously hurt, but the third one was not responding to treatment at all. "I need stronger medicine," Emily told Lisa. "This cub is going into shock." As Lisa worked to produce the necessary drugs, something unexpected happened outside the cave. The sounds of battle were changing. Emily could hear human voices coordinating with shadow prowler calls. Jake had joined the defense, using his military training to help Rex coordinate their forces. Tom was providing covering fire while shadow prowlers moved to new positions. The humans and prowlers were fighting together like they had trained as a team for years. Admiral Krosk was beginning to realize that his attack was failing badly. His soldiers were trained to fight other military units, not massive intelligent. Predators that moved like ghosts and fought with perfect coordination. "Fall back to the landing site," Krosk ordered. "Prepare for orbital bombardment." Emily heard the order through the communication channels and felt her heart sink. Orbital bombardment would kill every living thing in the area, including all the shadow prowler cubs. Rex understood the threat as well. He made urgent sounds to Emily, and she realized he was asking if the humans could stop the attack from space. "Our ship is not armed," Emily told Rex through their shared language. "We cannot fight their big ships." Rex made a sound that seemed almost like a smile. Then he made a series of calls that echoed through every tunnel in the cave system. What happened next amazed everyone watching. Shadow prowlers began emerging from hidden tunnels all across the continent. Not just the hundreds that had surrounded Krosk's forces, but thousands of them. They had been living in underground cities connected by vast tunnel networks that covered the entire planet. "How many are there?" Tom whispered as he watched endless streams of shadow prowlers flowing across the landscape toward the Vaxxon landing site. Emily was still working on the injured cubs, but she could see through the cave entrance that the entire planet seemed to be alive with moving shadow prowlers. Rex had called every member of his species to defend their world and their human friends. Admiral Krosk watched his sensor screens in growing horror as they detected massive movements all across Titan 7. What he had thought was a small population of dangerous animals was actually a civilization of millions. "Sir, we are detecting organized movement from every continent," his tactical officer reported. "There are more of these creatures than we ever imagined." Krosk faced a choice. He could order orbital bombardment and commit genocide against an intelligent species, or he could admit that the Vaxxon Empire had made a terrible mistake. The decision was made for him when Rex and a delegation of shadow prowler leaders approached the Vaxxon landing site under a flag of truce that Emily had taught them to make. Rex carried one of the cubs that Emily had successfully treated, showing Krosk that these beings had families worth protecting. Emily translated as Rex spoke directly to Admiral Krosk for the first time. "Rex says that his people do not want war with the Vaxxon Empire," Emily said. "But they will fight to the death to protect their children. He offers you a choice. Leave in peace or face every shadow prowler on the planet." Krosk looked at the massive creature holding a small cub, so gently, then at the thousands of other shadow prowlers visible in every direction. Finally, he looked at Emily, who had somehow accomplished what no military force could achieve. "How did you do it?" Krosk asked quietly. "How did you succeed where we failed?" "We helped their children instead of trying to hurt them," Emily replied simply. Admiral Krosk ordered his forces to withdraw. As the Vaxxon ships left orbit, Jake received a message from Earth Command authorizing the establishment of the first official human shadow prowler joint colony. 6 months later, Emily stood in the central plaza of New Haven, the settlement they had built together. Shadow prowler cubs played with human children while their parents worked side by side on construction projects that combined human technology with shadow prowler engineering. Rex approached Emily carrying his newest cub, a healthy little creature with bright amber eyes and scales that shimmered in the sunlight. "What will you call him?" Emily asked in fluent shadow prowler language. Rex made a sound that Emily had learned meant hope, followed by another sound that meant friend. The cub's name would be Hope Friend, in honor of the alliance between their species. Emily smiled as she watched human and shadow prowler children playing together. The galaxy had learned something important on Titan 7. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from conquering others, but from protecting what they love most. Word of the Human Shadow Prowler Alliance spread throughout the galaxy, changing how every species thought about first contact and interstellar relations. The humans had proven that understanding and compassion could achieve what force and technology could not. And in the medical center that Emily had established, Shadow Prowler and human doctors worked together to heal any child who needed help, regardless of what species they belonged to, because as Rex had taught them all, protecting the young was the most important duty of any intelligent being.